Yeah, maybe it was just a walkthrough on Tuesday, but the New Orleans Saints might have tipped their hand on how they're feeling about their quarterback room. We got all that and a little bit of land yap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as the Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, everything means everything to this New Orleans Saints coaching staff. Rashid Shaheed leads the way in terms of camp standouts. And it wasn't just any walkthrough for New Orleans on a Tuesday. It might have given us a little bit of a hint in terms of how the Saints are feeling about their quarterback room. We got all that and much more for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, the Saints might have had a walkthrough on Tuesday, but there was still a lot to take from it. So let's kind of go into this a little bit. The Saints might have tipped their hand a bit on how they're feeling about their quarterback room based on the way that they handled walkthroughs. When it came to the walkthroughs on Tuesday, which are like half speed, kind of stepping through different environments, different situations and things like that, the Saints were very focused on their kind of situational drills, end of half, 2-minute drills, hurry up field goals, things like that. They also worked on some kickoff coverage and some kickoff return stuff as well. But when it came to what it is that the Saints mostly focused on Tuesday, it was all about those sort of end of half situations. The Saints do this all the time, as most teams do. You start to work on some situational stuff where you're looking at end of half, you're looking at end of game 2-minute drills, things like that, where you're trying to drive for a game-winning score, or you're trying to drive to tie up the score at the end of the first half, or even take the lead at the end of the first half if you can. But the reason why it felt like maybe this tipped the hand a little bit about how the Saints feel about their quarterback room is because Spencer Rattler took all those snaps, every bit of the walkthrough, and then when they did sort of the half-speed 2-minute drill work, Jake Haener led the second team, and then Spencer Rattler was back on the field with the first team. There were no third-team reps, and Tyler Shough didn't see a single rep during the walkthrough. So it could mean a couple different things, right? With the fact that the Saints had just wrapped up the day before, Tyler Shough with the first team, Spencer Rattler with the second team, and then Jake Haener with the third team, then maybe the rotation for Tuesday was going to be Spencer Rattler with the first team, Jake Haener with the second team, and Tyler Shough with the third team, which I have my qualms with. But with it being a walkthrough, maybe not as big of a deal. And so maybe it was just a part of the rotation. You start to wonder, maybe, is everything okay with Tyler Shough in that situation? But we're not going to speculate there. We'll see how things go going into today's practice, where ideally you see a little bit more Tyler Shough in those situations. But the work was all about preparing for what's coming up next. The Saints are going to go into 2 straight days of padded practices, today on Wednesday and tomorrow on Thursday. And very likely they'll work some of those hurry-up drills. They'll work some of those end-of-half situations, potentially even some end-of-game situations eventually. And I think that we'll see, it seems like, Spencer Rattler kind of lead the way there. But it was so interesting to see him get all the focus when it came to these walkthroughs, to the point to where even when it got to those second-team reps, it was Jake Haener that was handling those. So I don't know if that gives us maybe a little bit of like, hey, here's the kind of the hierarchy right now, or if that was just a part of what the rotation was, like I mentioned, but definitely something to watch as things move forward. But it wasn't just any walkthrough. Watch me walk through. That's all I keep thinking every time that I'm going through this. So at least that's saying it. It's out of my head. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But when we did watch them walk through, it wasn't just all half speed, right? Usually when we watch sort of these walkthrough moments, it's very slow paced, it's methodical, it's detailed, and all those other things. And this was still methodical and detailed, but getting into the huddle, getting out of the huddle, getting through the play call, getting up to the line of scrimmage, the work at the line of scrimmage, the communication was loud. Everything was paced like a real game until the snap. Then once the snap happened, everything slowed down. These guys did not have helmets on, stuff like that. They were just they did have helmets on, but they were wearing jerseys, right? There were no pads, there were no shells, stuff like that. They just had helmets and jerseys on, and they were out there, kind of walking through stuff and everything and kind of taking it at a calm pace, which was great because of the way that the schedule was. You came off the first day of padded practice, and then you immediately went to an indoor, slowly paced out practice, but they still found moments for senses of urgency. I would say, and look, I've only been covering the team in person for a few years now, but I would say that was the most kind of energetic walkthrough I think I've ever seen when it comes to this team. And I don't just mean for this offseason and under Kellen Moore. I'm talking about these Dennis Allen practices, these Darren Rizzi practices, all that. That was the most energized I've seen a walkthrough. And dare I say, even fun. Like, there were some fun moments to where, there were some laughs about all of it, everything like that. Like there were all these great moments all throughout. Like, you could just feel like the vibes are good, the joy is there, all that other stuff. Easy to kind of be that way during training camp. I get it, right? The big test is, are you still going to be that way if you start losing games and whatever? But in terms of where the Saints are right now, it was just great to kind of see the way that everything was orchestrated. The communication was loud. Spencer Rattler was commanding. The defense was loud, communicating, getting calls, all that other stuff. I just thought that it was really impressive in terms of what it is that we saw and what we could take away from a walkthrough. Typically, like, you go to these walkthroughs and there's only, so many things you could do. I had 2 pages of observations coming out of walkthroughs, starting with Spencer Rattler, first team, Jake Haener, second team, no snaps for Tyler Shough, all that kind of stuff. We saw Julian Blackmon, who literally just signed earlier in training camp. And all of a sudden, he's getting first team reps. Like, he's immediately put himself in that position. And I think that veteran experience certainly helps and everything. Like, I kind of feel like, to a certain extent, the retirement of Tyrann Mathieu is going to elevate a little bit more the importance of NFL snaps amongst this defense. Like, maybe maybe not having Tyrann Mathieu means you want more overall experience around your roster. And so it gives guys like Isaac Yiadom a little bit of an edge, right? Because he's got the NFL experience over Quincy Riley. It gives a guy like Julian Blackmon a little bit of an edge over guys like Jordan Howden, as well as Jonas Anchor, because he's got the NFL experience. Jonas Anchor working a little bit as like a backup star behind Alontae Taylor, getting some opportunities in the slot, everything like that. Like, there's just been a lot of that kind of movement around the defense and people getting opportunities with different looks and different placements and different deployments and everything. Like, it's been really, really interesting to watch. And so that was another big part of it, was watching Julian Blackmon move up into, being kind of a permanent fixture in first team throughout those walkthroughs. We saw him kind of crack those first team reps on Monday, but to really see him be the guy on the field, I'm really interested to see if he's still out there as the guy next to Justin Reed today, or did they go back to Jordan Howden, all that. So just really interesting pieces in terms of all that. I think, we talked to Davon Godchaux after practice, and he talked about how this was, the best training camp he's ever been a part of. This is a guy that's been around for 8 years, even before that and everything. So it's super interesting kind of seeing the way that the Saints are utilizing all of this. And we'll go into some of the attention to detail stuff later. But I think the next thing that I want to do is look at more big takeaways from what we've seen over the course of camp so far. Like, I feel like you got the hand tip a little bit when it came to the quarterback conversation with these walkthroughs and the way that they were managed, but there's still a lot of other stuff that's happened over the course of camp that I think is really important. So let's run through all of it. We'll take a look at all the things that have stood out to me about New Orleans Saints training camp so far, and we'll start off with Rashid Shaheed, who's probably been one of the biggest standouts of camp thus far. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. That means it's time to fire up their group chats and, of course, fire up your Yahoo Fantasy Football League. All the best are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or you're a veteran making your millionth league, you know that Yahoo Fantasy is the place to go. All the best rankings, all the best kind of pre-draft, big board building as well, setting your queue. Great research that's in there as well. Fantastic management if you're the commish of your league as well. So all of that there for you and even more, because to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over the course of 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August 4th. So stay tuned and get started by creating or joining your Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, family. Rashid Shaheed has been one of the biggest stars of camp, and that's where we're going to start here as we take a look at 5 things that we've learned over the course of what we're going to call the first 6 days of training camp now, because I'll include the walkthrough as a part of the training camp process. So that was day number 6. Talked about the kind of importance of that walkthrough, some of the things we might have learned from all that. But I think the big thing that I want to focus on now is some of those other big takeaways. And so I'll start off with Rashid Shaheed. We've talked about him here on the show before. He was a surprise during OTAs because remember he had that knee injury that ended his season early last year. And then we weren't super sure whether or not he was going to be ready to go for OTAs and everything like that. And not only was he ready to go for OTAs, but he looked fantastic out there. Still fast, still agile, just doing all the things that he typically does. He was absolutely outstanding during that time, during mini camps, and he has continued that here all throughout his time throughout training camp. More of a 3-level threat, getting some more of those short area, intermediate area opportunities, getting some more of those catch and run opportunities, using that speed laterally crossing the field. This guy just has everything that he needs to be a star in this league. He's gracious. He's got a great attitude. He's excellent at the podium, and he has this high-flying ability right across from Chris Olave, who's also got all those qualities. Like, this could be a star tandem for the New Orleans Saints. I know the big question mark is what about the guys behind them? And I understand that, but just looking at those two, like the sky's the limit for both of them. And I don't want to hype them up too much because we don't know what's actually going to happen going into the 2025 season. But just looking at what we've seen in training camp so far, particularly Rashid Shaheed has been remarkably impressive, and he's been one of the biggest standouts in camp. The other big standouts, of course, guys like Chase Young and Carl Granderson. But I got to mention some folks from this rookie class as well. And I'll start off with linebacker Danny Stutsman, who's absolutely been a big-time standout. You want to talk about a position where it's top-heavy and there's a lot of question marks behind the starters. It's definitely the linebacker position, right? Over 100 starts in his career for Demario Davis, over 40 starts in his career for Pete Werner. And after that, not a start after that. 0, none of them. And so there's games played, thanks to Nephi Sewell. But the only other guy that had starts under his belt was Anthony Orji, and now he's elsewhere. And so bringing in a guy like Danny Stutsman, I think, is massive, right? You get a guy that's got great sideline-to-sideline ability, that plays like his hair's on fire, that goes out there and makes plays. He can cover, he can tackle, he can run, he can fit the run. He does all this stuff well. He communicates extremely well. He's a fantastic leader, brings a little bit of juice to the defense as well. I think there's a lot of value in what a guy like Danny Stutsman can bring to this defense. And I think that him as kind of the really just one of the players that could have an immediate impact, or as immediate impact as possible, right? Like it's going to come down to how often he gets the opportunity to be on the field. Because when we talk about the 3-4 defense, it doesn't mean 4 linebackers on the field. It's still 2 linebackers for the most part, and the other guys are 2 edge rushers, right? It's Chase Young, it's Carl Granderson. If it's not Carl Granderson, then it's Cam Jordan. If it's not Chase Young, then it's either Isaiah Foskey or Fadil Diggs or whoever wins that spot back there. It's not like 4 off-ball linebackers are all of a sudden on the field. And so the idea of like, oh, well, it's a 3-4 defense, so that means that Danny Stutsman's got a lot of opportunity. That's not actually the case. Like, Danny Stutsman's still only going to have opportunities when the Saints actually put 3 off-ball linebackers on the field, which I think will be rare. It already was rare. Now it'll be even rarer, more rare. I know it doesn't matter. But like, it's only going to be more rare in those situations. But if he gets the opportunity to get on the field behind Pete Werner, if he gets the opportunity to get out on the field behind Demario Davis, then I think that that's where he gets the opportunity to really have that immediate impact. And then, of course, that impact can go beyond just this year in 2025. It's the rookie contract. It's the ability to be able to have an impact within his first few years, all those other pieces. So I think that Danny Stutsman's in a really good spot. And he kind of is one of the first guys that leaps off the mind when it comes to those that have an immediate impact or have the opportunity for an immediate impact amongst this roster or this rookie class. But you got to look at a guy like Kelvin Banks Jr., for instance, who's going to be starting at left tackle, one of the most important positions in all of football, right? The guy that's protecting the blind side of these quarterbacks, unless Hunter Deckers has ever taken snaps as a left-handed quarterback. But like Kelvin Banks has a huge role ahead of him, right? And he's going to be up next to a guy, he's going to be next to a guy like Trevor Penning, who looks physical. He looks violent. He drove some people to the ground the other day. Now, he's been taken to the ground a couple of times too, but he's been a little bit more upright here as of late. And so when you look at Kelvin Banks Jr., who's having to go up against Chase Young in his rookie season and his rookie training camp and all that, like this guy's getting a crash course, a masterclass, and what it's like to, defend NFL, or to block rather NFL defenders and NFL edge rushers and all that. And so I think that that's another place where you can look at some immediate impact, obviously, right? Could Tyler Shough, I think Lance made a really great point on the squad show. We were talking about kind of the timid nature of Tyler Shough right now, to where like even in 7-on-7s, he's holding on to the football. And yeah, like there's value in making the corners cover a second time and the wide receivers run the drills and stuff like that, but get the ball out one way or another, right? Like I understand you're operating some of those situations and everything, but I can see the value in still just trying to get the ball out. Go out there, be risky, go make mistakes in 7-on-7s. You can do that. You're fine. And so I like to see a little bit more for that, or more of that, as opposed to the risk aversion, which is one of like Derek Carr's big dings, right? But one of the things that Lance pointed out that I thought was really important during the squad show was he's got to get used to the fact, or he will get used to the fact eventually, Tyler Shough will, that what's open in the NFL doesn't look anything like what's open in college. In college, you're talking about 3, 4, 5 yards of separation. In the NFL, you're talking about a step, right? You're not talking about yards of separation, you're about a step, maybe 2 steps if you're lucky. And so once he kind of takes those risks a little bit more and gives those players, those receivers, the opportunity to go out there and make a play with that 1 step of separation, which is open in the NFL, I think that's going to change everything for him. Like that arm talent, ball placement, his ability to locate passes where only the receivers or the pass catchers can catch them and make a play on the ball. Like all that's going to play into his strengths once he gets comfortable there. So I'm mentioning that not as a criticism of Tyler Shough, but instead as like hey, he's that close to being able to maybe make some more of those plays and maybe, be a little bit more consistent and not tuck and run and throw the football away and things like that. Although sometimes that's the right decision to make too. So it's a tricky balance to walk, but I do think that separation note that Lance brought up is a really, really important one, and one that probably has a pretty big impact for the trajectory of Tyler Shough's training camp if that begins to click for him a little bit early. So I think that that's kind of huge for him. So far, so good when it comes to where the Saints are. But I think that a big part of that really comes down not just to the players on the field, but the coaching staff and the fact that every single thing means something to this coaching staff. Let's break that down next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by friends over at 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings all of that bold flavors of grape, ginger, and lime from your favorite golf drink, but without the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot to help you turn that strong front nine into an even stronger back nine. One of my favorite golf memories was going out with my good friend Jake Madison from over at Locked On Pelicans, playing some golf with some friends I hadn't played in years. I took the last 2 holes off and I still won. That was great. So you can go and check it all out today over at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. And you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is valid only until September 30th on one order and cannot be combined and used with other promotions. This code is not good for subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with your friends or you're trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order the transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. There's a lot of reason to heap praise on the way that the Saints training camp has gone so far. We'll still need to see how the 2025 season goes, but a big reason for optimism is the attention to detail, the attention to health, and the attention to the player experience that Kellen Moore and his coaching staff have brought to New Orleans. It has been a difference maker. Now we got to see if it's going to be a game changer, but the Saints are at least off to good progress when it comes to where they were and where they are now in terms of where they're going to be headed in the near future. We appreciate you very much for being here with us. Don't forget to subscribe. All that, we hit 30,000 subscribers. Cannot thank you enough there. And don't forget as well, you can always catch us over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, 10 a.m. and now at 5 p.m. as well. We're on double duty over at GCSEN. So make sure you go and check us out over there on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as our good friends over at Locked On Pelicans, Locked On LSU, and Locked On SEC as well. Kellen Moore is doing a great job. Is he winning football games? No, because ain't nobody played no football games yet. Are they going to win some football games? Some. Are they going to win most of their football games? Probably not. Like, that's not the expectation for this team. But I think that this is a multi-year process, and it needed to start somewhere. And ideally, it needed to start somewhere positively. And I think one of the places where it's starting so positively for this team is the coaching staff. I think that the coaching staff and the changes that they have made have been massive for this team. They've been tone setting. They've been narrative changing. They've been uplifting for the roster. So I wanted to highlight some of the things that we've seen that are different. I want to go to today. Or not today. Sorry, I want to go to, today, right? They're starting with the padded practices, getting back to padded practices. But before they get back to 2 straight days of padded practices, what did they do? They did a walkthrough. They did that walkthrough after the first day of padded practices. And so you had 5 practices outside in the heat. Then all of a sudden you come back inside, you go to the indoor facility, you go to walkthroughs, half pace, kind of taking your time with stuff, and giving them what Kellen Moore called a regen day, a bit of a regeneration recovery day. So they basically did everything that they typically do in their schedule. They did on Tuesday, except for the practice component, right? They didn't do the full hour and a half outside, hitting each other and all that other stuff. And so they did that, and then they get their opportunity to get back out on the field, put pads on again today, and then they'll do it again tomorrow with an opportunity to sort of try to build some momentum off of where they are. Then on Friday, they go into a day off. So everything from the schedule on a day-to-day, as well as the schedule in each day to where this team is practicing early in the morning, then they get a little bit of a break, and they have kind of this 2-hour gap where they can spend time doing recovery and massage and cold plunge and film study and everything like that. Like the offensive linemen, for instance, right? They finished their practice on Monday. Some of them came and did media, and then they got a shower, got a bite. They did their own film study as a group, right? Practice, watch, practice, study, all that as a group. And then they went on to do some recovery and everything like that. And then they got back on with their day, which included more practice review, more film study, more working with offense, defense, special teams, and then eventually the walkthrough in the afternoon, which again is kind of that half pace, slow pace kind of walkthrough throughout the day. And so everything about that kind of lends itself to the player experience. And this is all brought upon by Kellen Moore's schedule, which is in collaboration created with guys like Ted Rath, who's the head of sports performance. I'm sure other coaches like and coordinators, Doug Nussmeier, Brandon Staley, all these other guys are all contributing to the way that this is working. And I think that for Kellen Moore, as somebody that's a former player, that's younger, that can connect with these players as well. They're in the locker room, that is kind of leading with this idea of, hey, we care about you, a sense of compassion for these players and everything, is absolutely making the experience better for the players. And that's going to do something that I thought was really, really interesting when Davon Godchaux was at the podium on Tuesday, where he talked about, look, if you buy in and you trust your coaches, you play harder. And I think that right now what you're seeing is, like, we all had these question marks about Kellen Moore, right? Is he going to be the rah-rah guy? Is he going to be able to really get these guys to all buy in? Is he forceful enough? Can he be heated, like all these other things and stuff like that? And one of the big things that he talked about when we asked him questions about that was, look, I'm going to be my genuine self, and I'm going to allow authenticity to lead the way. And that's how he's winning right now. That's the game that he's winning. He ain't winning games on the field at the moment. We got to see if that's going to be the case, right? We have to acknowledge that. But you had to start somewhere. And that is a big battle, right? Winning over this roster in terms of guys that are either coming from new places or guys that were already here and that are learning new things, right? You think about Demario Davis. You think about Cam Jordan. You think about guys like Spencer Rattler even, right? Who had, the Dennis Allen and the Darren Rizzi experiences last year, and then now going into everything with Kellen Moore, probably a little bit easier to win over the offense than it is to win over the guys from the defense, but he's doing a good job of all of it. And he's surrounded himself with guys that pay attention to everything. Brandon Staley is an attention to detail guy too. That's why you have safeties who, like Justin Reed, are making calls and making changes based of the defense based on what they're seeing from the offensive side of the football, right? Guys like Chase Young who are getting a pick. Are they going to stand up or are they going to put their hand in the dirt, right? Based on what they're seeing from the offense. You go to a guy like TJ Paganetti, the run game coordinator, who basically installs different rushing attacks based upon different coverages that you'll see. So every coverage has an answer when it comes to what they want to do in the run game. That's all attention to detail. And so I think that that's the thing that we're seeing most consistently when it comes to what Kellen Moore and his coaching staff are bringing. Everything means everything, right? Chance the Rapper, everybody's somebody's everything, right? And so that's the way that this is working when it comes to their approach. And it's helping the players because A, it's giving them sort of common sense rules to follow when they're on the field in terms of execution and everything like that. But even before they get on the field, they're saying, they have the opportunity to stay on the field right now. And they're getting all that done. They're not overworked. They're not being asked to warm up on their own off to the side. There are things that are getting them ready for the day's work and an opportunity to recover after it. A schedule that allows you to be able to operate efficiently too, to where you're not just like Kellen Moore at one point even instituted TV timeouts so that players would get used to those long, awkward breaks that you see during NFL games because of TV commercials. Well, institute it and have long, awkward breaks in practice so everybody gets used to having to shift that momentum. Like they're thinking about everything. And is it going to lead to X, Y, and Z? We don't know. We'll have to see. But as of right now, I think that they're at least in a good place to start and an attention to detail that we have not seen in this organization in the recent past. All right, coming up tomorrow, we'll get you updated on everything you need to know from Saints Camp Day 7, second day with padded practices. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a party day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Know what the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.